When a wrestler gets repackaged, it can really go one of two ways. There's been successful repackagings that have prolonged and, in some cases, saved a wrestler's career, while there are other instances of gimmick and image changes that have done way more harm than good. Actually, scrap that, there are really three ways a wrestler repackage can go, since there have been some that were so fleeting or unremarkable that most fans struggle to remember them. Unless they were so awful we've just tried our best to banish them from our brains. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestling repackages you completely forgot about. Join us! Number 10. The Con Man. Stationed in WWE developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling for an age, Rob Conway did the dark match thing, worked shows like Velocity, and filled in as an extra before getting his big break in August of 2003. First teaming with Rene Dupree and then Sylvain Grenier, Conway enjoyed success as a member of La Resistance before it was deemed that the team had run its course and he attempted to go solo. I say attempted because his repackaging was pretty much met with widespread apathy. Referring to himself as the Con Man, the former tag team champion decided to do his best Buff Bagwell impression by wearing a silly hat, shades, and some mesh gear. He feuded with various WWE legends, which didn't exactly get him over like Randy Orton, and Eugene before WWE clearly got bored and just gave him a losing streak. Rob looked like a physical specimen and could work just fine, but there was a clear disconnect between him and the audience that prevented him from breaking through, despite the fact that he had quite possibly the greatest entrance music in WWE history. It may not have been great, but at least he did things his way. He did things the Con way. What? No pop? Number 9. The Black Ninja. After a few years away from the business, Terry Poach, who had wrestled as Terry Power for various territories as well as in Japan, was signed by WWE in late 1998, where, as Tori, she initially portrayed an obsessed fan of Sable. After competing in the women's division for the best part of the year, she became a member of D-Generation X, and X-Pac's on-screen girlfriend. It was a decent spot for Tori, but she suffered a torn labrum when Bubba Dudley put her through a table at the 2000 King of the Ring, placing her on the shelf for the rest of the year. When she was cleared to return, there was no DX for her to come back to. Poach had her own idea, however, pitching a mysterious masked ninja character. Her identity concealed by a full bodysuit, the Black Ninja assisted Raven in his hardcore title defenses while trying her best to avoid being unmasked. But on the March 11th, 2001 edition of Sunday Night Heat, Molly Holly finally took the hood off to reveal Tori, who subsequently vanished from WWE television in order to take a role as a trainer on Tough Enough, shortly before she was fired. Number 8. Coach Buzz Stern. Georgia native Ray Lloyd did a little of this and a little of that while wrestling on the independent circuit and doing the occasional job match for WCW during the late 80s and early 90s. In '96, Lloyd got his big break when he was chosen to play Glacier, the Mortal Kombat-inspired character that... let's just call it a Sub-Zero ripoff and be done with it, eh? There was a lot of hype behind Glacier, not to mention money, with the costume and special entrance alone costing WCW tens of thousands of dollars. Though Glacier engaged in a memorable storyline with Mortis, Wrath, and Ernest the Cat Miller, the character petered out and became a glorified jobber before disappearing. In August of '99, Lloyd re-emerged as Coach Buzz Stern. On the verge of being cut, Lloyd had spent $8,000 of his own money to film vignettes as Stern, a gimmick he'd previously done on the indies, which ended up saving his job. Coach Stern picked Luther Biggs as his protege, berating him after he lost matches. The duo was only on television for a couple of months before they were both released due to cost cutting. Number 7. Saba Simba. He might be a figure of fun these days, what with his particular, peccadillos, but make no mistake about it, Tony Atlas was a major star and a history maker in his own right during his prime. Mr. USA was, after all, one half of the first African-American team to win WWE Tag Title Gold, alongside Rocky Johnson. But personal demons had severely hampered his career to the point that, come 1990, he was broke and sleeping on a park bench in Oregon. Atlas had credited his improbable return to WWE that year as saving his life, which is undoubtedly a good thing. But it's just a shame that he couldn't come back doing a gimmick that was a little, I don't know, less racist. Saba Simba saw Atlas return to WWE TV, having rediscovered his roots by joining a Ugandan tribe. Wrestling barefoot and acting like a savage native, Saba Simba was adorned in a giant feather headdress and carried a wooden shield and spear. Again, I'm glad this let the WWE Hall of Famer get back on his feet, but I'm also not entirely upset that it was short-lived and it's been forgotten by most. Number 6. Trucker Norm. If there was a Hall of Fame for bad gimmicks, and let's face it, there really should be, then poor old Mike Shaw would probably occupy a fair few spaces in it. The man whose biggest claim to fame was portraying the repulsive Bastion Booger also had the unfortunate dishonor of wrestling one match as Friar Ferguson, the pro wrestling monk. Those two were in WWE, but Shaw wasn't spared when it came to his run in WCW either. Norman the Lunatic was said to come from the state hospital, with Teddy Long, who held the key to the lunatic's padded cell, threatening to lock him away for good should Norman refuse to do his manager's bidding. After a while, WCW decided to change course and turned Norman the Lunatic into Trucker Norm. In the storyline, Norm's father, who had been a trucker, had passed away, inspiring the so-called mental patient to get behind the wheel of a big rig. Surely there would be some laws against this. Now hailing from the highways and byways of America, Trucker Norm traded his hospital clothes for a pair of denim overalls and hit the open road to nowhere, as the repackage only lasted a handful of matches before it was scrapped altogether. Number 5? Who? No matter how many times he screwed up, and boy did he screw up often, Jim Neidhart would invariably find himself back on the WWE payroll. This was in large part because the Hart family patriarch Stu would call up Vince McMahon and ask that the Rhino be given another shot. Big Jim had been a star during the 80s and early 90s as a member of the Hart Foundation tag team, but WWE evidently didn't know what to do with him when they agreed to take him back in 1996. The best they could come up with was the character of Who, which was little more than a reason for McMahon to do his own version of Abbott and Costello's Who's On First routine. A nice 1950s reference for the new generation fans there. Though he wore a yellow mask to hide his true identity, it was obvious based on his body hair and physique just who really was. Neidhart himself hated the gimmick and suspected it was given to him as a punishment for prior indiscretions. Luckily for the Anvil, Who was only a thing for a not-so-hot minute. I mean, seriously, whose idea was this anyway? Not whose, that's who. Wait, what? Number 4, Mr. Hole-in-One. You've just gotta love Barry Darsow, don't you? Reputedly one of wrestling's genuine nice guys, Darsow enjoyed a long and fruitful career that saw him take on various guises, to varying degrees of success. The man formerly known as Crusher Khrushchev is best remembered as Demolition Smash, having had an epic WWE Tag Team title reign alongside Bill Axe Edey. After Demolition split up, Darsow had another memorable run as Repo Man before joining WCW, where he became villainous truck driver the Blacktop Bully. Darsow was fired following a blading incident at Uncensored 1995, only to return a couple of years later under his own name. But in late 98, he became Mr. Hole-in-One, the evil golfer that professional wrestling was, in my opinion, sorely lacking. Wearing polo shirts and a flat cap while carrying his clubs to the ring, Mr. Hole-in-One would occasionally offer his opponents a victory if they could sink a putt first, only to invariably attack them. A fun undercard gimmick, Mr. Hole-in-One was pretty much relegated to lesser shows like Saturday Night and Worldwide, and Darsow dropped the act after about 6 months of sporadic appearances. Number 3, The Governor. Shannon Spruill didn't have the best of luck after WCW closed its doors, being forced to bounce around the indies when WWE passed on signing her. She did make some appearances for early-day TNA, mind, before being invited back full-time in 2008. Not as Daphne, the gothic scream queen that most wrestling fans knew her as, but as an entirely new and very different sort of character. The Governor was TNA's attempt to cash in on the notoriety of Alaskan Governor and Republican Party vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin, who had become a media sensation of sorts due to her unique public persona, which had already been parodied by Tina Fey on SNL. It's a credit to Spruill that almost no one clocked that it was actually Daphne playing the Palin impersonator, who became embroiled in a storyline with the Beautiful People that saw her wrestle 2 matches as the Governor. The saga, which lasted about 4 months, ended when the Beautiful People cut the Governor's hair, after which Spruill reverted back to her Daphne character. The Governor was a gimmick very much of its time, and it's no great surprise that people don't remember it today. Number 2, Furface / The Mariner. If Ed Leslie doesn't hold the record for most gimmicks performed by one wrestler, then I'd sure like to meet the person who does. Mainly so I can ask them just what the hell their problem is. Among the many gimmicks that Leslie did in the majors were Brutus the Barber Beefcake, the Butcher, the Man with No Name, the Zodiac, the Booty Man, and the Disciple. Though he was pretty much always the Barber during his WWE run, there was a brief period where Leslie tried out an altogether different and very bizarre gimmick. After suffering severe injuries in a parasailing accident on the 4th of July 1990, Leslie returned in early 91 as a mysterious character decked out in odd outfits. Later branded Furface or the Mariner, he would run in at the end of matches and clean house on heels with punches and a headbutt before immediately retreating backstage. Never named on screen, this ungodly creation only appeared on TV a couple of times, before WWE gave up on it after some wrestlers expressed concerns about potentially further injuring Leslie, who subsequently returned as Beefcake to host the barbershop segment. And number 1, Brawn the Leprechaun. Infamous in some circles for being the man who tried to run Batista away from the business and attempted to thwart the Great Waldo, Dwayne Bruce may have been a trainer at the power plant, but his own in-ring career was rather undistinguished. If fans remember him at all, it's likely for his run as Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, who was basically a glorified enhancement talent and a member of the State Patrol tag team. Sarge's biggest push, if you want to call it that, came ironically when he was tasked with playing a little guy. In the summer of '96, Bruce dyed his hair red, found some traditional Irish garb, and transformed into Brawn the Leprechaun. Like Hornswoggle on steroids, metaphorically speaking of course, Brawn was a member of waning stable the Dungeon of Doom. He only wrestled 4 matches on TV, only one of which was on Nitro, before he found his pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Which is to say, he went back to jobber duty and terrorizing would-be superstars at WCW's training school. I'm sure his brief stint as Brawn the Leprechaun did wonders for his Napoleon complex. #Justice for Waldo.